Any questions about distribution? Thank you. Okay, Simon, please.
Not a question about distribution, actually, but just to come back one more time to this urgent issue of, the MMK and its disappearance, and the question of whether monies that are pledged to particular films are going to be forthcoming. I just want to say something about Hungary's position in the European context and with your neighbors and friends and the countries around about. 2 years ago, in this building, during the Berlinale, on behalf of the Irish Film Board, I signed a protocol, a reciprocity co-production protocol with the MMK, under which we agreed to look for and identify and then co-finance films together. And it's been very fruitful. We've made several films, several Hungarian films and several Irish films. And the latest of those films, which is in post-production, is an Irish film called The Other Side of Sleep. The Other Side of Sleep is being post-produced partly in Hungary. The Netherlands Film Fund is also a partner in this film. And the current situation is that because Ferenc Pusztai, who is the Hungarian co-producer, is unable to receive from the MMK the money that has been contractually pledged, he cannot pay the laboratory, and the laboratory will not release the film so that the post-production can continue. Rebecca Daly, who is the director of that film, it's her first feature film. She was a graduate of the Cine Fondation, and she has a right to offer her film to Cannes and a privileged access to Un Certain Regard. And she's unable to do anything about this. The producers can do nothing about it. They cannot show the film or in any way progress the post-production of the film until it's released by the laboratory, and that means that the money forthcoming, supposedly from the MMK, needs to be available in order to pay the laboratory. This is just a very concrete example of one little film, which is affected. But I just would say, and I understand that these issues of bankruptcy, whatever it's called, are no doubt real. And I very much appreciate, Andy Viner, you have a very big and difficult job, and you're trying to plan the future. But I would honestly say that in order to be able to plan the future, the present must be solved. The present must be solved in relation to your international partners. I speak on behalf of Doreen Bonenkamp, who is the director of the Netherlands Film Fund. She couldn't be here this afternoon. She's involved in the case that I mentioned. I, on behalf of the Irish Film Board, and other producers and funders of films in which we are involved with Hungary and with the old MMK and the money that should be forthcoming there, these are relationships that I think, as Hungary for the future, you need. I think the very last thing you need, and the very last thing that Andy needs as he tries to build a future, is the prospect of isolation for Hungary. You need friends, you need allies, and you need neighbors who are ready to work with you to try to make the Hungarian cinema great again. I think, please, the greater amount of energy that you can put into finding a quick solution to the present will make the future more accessible.
Olivier,
just to...
problem with this? No. Yeah, please, Peter. Please.
I would like to add something to this because I would like to underline every word Simon said. Because it's especially important for Austria, for Austrian producers to be able to continue these cooperations and to be able to trust in this system and into solving the problems we have in the present. But I would like to say something else about this, about that films are cultural products. I mean, never measure the success of films by counting tickets, especially counting tickets in your own country. When you count tickets, then count them all over the world, including the festival audiences. I'm in this discussion every day, and it's the end. It's the start of the end of the show. If the different, let's say, sorts of films are played against each other. I mean, every country, every nation needs its national blockbusters. Everybody needs international successes at festivals and international awareness. Sometimes this is going together, and you have international successful films which give you this awareness, and they are successful in the cinemas in their own country, but this is a very rare phenomenon. And it's very dangerous to make here differences then which have an influence in the funding system. Especially in small countries, this is the death of the film funding system. And films are not funded by governments. Films are never funded by governments. Films are funded by the public. Films are funded by everybody sitting in this room. Films are funded by the man or the woman who is driving the tram, just passing the street. They are not funded by governments, and this is very important. They are funded by the people watching TV, buying a DVD, and so on and so on. And I think it's very important what Csaba said, that there is a cultural exception, and we are talking about cultural products and not about cars or whatever. So what is the success of a film? This is one of the most interesting questions. And you cannot measure it only with one criteria. You need many criteria for this.
That leads us back to the art meets entertainment problem.
I think that's kind of the answer, but yes, there are a lot of criteria. By the way, Simon, regarding your questions, we're aware of the problem. We are looking into it. We're trying to figure out how to solve it without insulting everybody else who needs help but can't get it. So it's not an easy job for me to try and decide that this goes and this doesn't go. But we're aware of the acuteness of the problem, and we're looking at it. As far as I'm concerned, and I sit here and I'm in awe of this fantastic European system that I was not a part of growing up in the film business, because boy, I had to sweat for every single dime that I was able to get in order to make a movie. I had nobody that supported me, and I'm just now talking about my personal experience. I think how easy and how fantastic it is that you have all these government agencies and aides that get behind you and support you. I think we should thank them. But somehow in Hungary there seems to be an attitude that they owe us. And I think that the they owe us approach, I think, needs to be rethought. I think it is really the intention, and it is really my intention to put something very unique together that I think, using my past expertise and my 30 years of experience, with having lots of hits on the one side commercially and lots of awards on the other side artistically, I think the two can live together. And I think that should be our goal, and nothing less than that.
Mm-hmm. Please. A producer from Bulgaria.
Thank you. Hello. Yes, I'm a producer from Bulgaria. I was hoping for many years that Bulgaria in film industry will become similar to Hungary. The time has come, but not in the good sense, not that we become as Hungary. Hungary all of a sudden started to resemble Bulgaria. To resemble in a way that is very dangerous. I see a danger. I want to share my view at this moment, if it could help my Hungarian friends and colleagues. And what I see is that a system is in crisis, and being in crisis, it panics. It pushes the panic button, which means cuts in governmental financing of culture, and in its panic, it becomes arrogant to pretend that it gives the money, and it should, we say, we have a saying in Bulgaria, whoever pays, he orders the music. We are not in a pub, though it's a public financing. And in a way, I hope that what happened in Bulgaria, we were for 2 months on the streets, and we started to negotiating with the government to finally here people said many times, questions were asked, how do you include the Hungarian industry people in the plans for the future? I'm very curious, it's not the moment here to ask this question, but I will later ask the Hungarian producers to explain me how come is their system became bankrupt. Isn't it a very complex situation where in Bulgaria at least, the governments, one after the other, were selling the cinemas? Isn't it a situation where the cultural, educational, television, media was uprising generation after generation with primitive taste, with primitive level of idea what is entertainment, what is fulfilling. This is the reason that the cinemas are empty. This is it's a complex, of course, and most of the people here probably speak about it morning and evening. What I see as a danger also is that tickets are mentioned. Tickets is an important thing if everything else is in order. And probably you will evaluate all the complexity of the situation, but just a simply putting the things on the table. Is the system bankrupt in any of your thoughts? Do you give it an explanation that the system became bankrupt because the government gave too much?
No. The government budget didn't cover the credits of the banks given to the producers.
Maybe my English was not good enough. I was ironic. I mean, obviously, the system is bankrupt because the government didn't give enough. The system worked as it used to work, because the situation in Bulgaria is the same. We had a law, and according to this law, a formula which gave a certain amount of money yearly, all of a sudden, the government suspended the law because it decided that in a year of crisis, it's not necessary to produce so many films, or it's not necessary to pay back to the people that already have contracts. So this similarity comes somehow obvious that the government has decided to help the system in a wrong way, in my opinion.
Well, and that's what I'm just very curious about your opinions and your questions, Nick and Bram. Just listening over, this discussion and the list of the problems that we have facing too.
Yeah, Nick Holzer from Variety. Obviously I've been covering this story and I'm very concerned about the uncertainty that it's produced, and I'm very pleased to hear that you're aiming to get a programme up there within a couple of months or so, because obviously people in the industry are very concerned about what is going to happen to a lot of the projects, what's going to happen to institutions, to people's jobs, careers, as things go forward. one thing I would like to know is what you think are the real priorities. I mean, obviously you've given yourself these 60 days and hopefully another 30 days after that approval from the government. But what do you think are the key things that need fixing, and where would you like to see the Hungarian film industry in, say, a year or 5 years?
So the priority list.
My number one priority is to come up with a system that fits in the two boxes, the EU laws and the Hungarian film laws, in order for me to come up with a system that works within those two frameworks. If I can get that accomplished, and this is a legal issue, not mine, and it's a government and a legal issue, if I can get those defined, then we'll be much quicker and ready to go. So the priority, number one, is that. Number two will be to really look at all these gentlemen's fantastic years of experience and come up with a system that I think will work in Hungary, and to adapt that or to work on it and to be able to talk to them and figure out what they think was wrong with theirs. How would they do it today? All I know is that in the last 15 years, all of these government financing structures or government aid structures have been reorganized. And it's time for Hungary to do the same. So I think we're in a natural process of doing this. There's nothing extraordinary about it, other than, unfortunately, we're going through a recession. And it's difficult. And it's difficult for everyone, not only this sector, but every other sector. So we're doing the best we can. So the priority is, number one, the legal structure. Number two, the structure itself. And number three, get up and go.
Yeah.
Buddha connecting Cottbus. I think there's so many things were already taught. So my question, which is now also a bit too early, is, so during the past years, I think that Hungarian cinema was quite successful on a festival basis. On the festivals, there were festivals running through the international festival circuit. So I would say it was a really bad timing for the situation. So we Hungarian filmmakers are facing a kind of creative cut in the moment. And so because they have no means, they have no chances to produce another film to go on, which is quite, on festival, quite successful filmmaking. On the other hand, Hungarian cinema is not very present within commercial cinema. So it comes a bit back to this question which Simon raised up, which is the revenue of a film. Is it to establish a special label of a country's cinematography, or is it just money revenues? So do you have any artistic preferences, what you would support? So there's always this term mentioned, arts meets arthouse meet, yeah. So are there any artistic preferences, also from your background as a producer in the US?
My artistic preferences are not important, frankly. It's really the country's artistic, or the individual directors and producers' artistic preferences, and see if we can channel those in a positive avenue. What I like, my own personal taste in cinema may not be 100% of what I make. I make those things for different reasons. But the idea is to be able to provide films that have an opportunity to show the country's best assets and to win a festival. And when it's a commercial success, yes, to collect and to make sure that we do get our share of the box office. I think the two go hand in hand.
Hold on. We have some questions. Andrei Hules, he was first.
Sorry. My name is Andrei Hules, or Andrei Hules from the Hungarian side. We just finished a film that is 51% Hungarian, Canadian, Slovenian on the other side. And we are just at the point where we have to account for who spent what and where did the money come from. And I would like to ask for a little clarification. You keep saying that the Hungarian filmmakers have spent more than what they had. And in our example, we haven't spent anything that we were not allowed to spend. In other words, we had a contract with the government. We had part of it we got a bank loan for. And it was all arranged. It was all legal. It was all approved by the Hungarian government. So, of the foundation, which is an organ of the... well, that's not how I understand. This is probably the clarification I need. This is the problem, and this is what I have a hard time explaining to Eurimage and to our co-production partners. So what they, and of course I would love to understand, is where does the responsibility lie?
I can give you some idea, even though this is not my thing, but just looking through the past, there was an amount of money. Some years ago, there was a 6 billion forint allotment for Hungarian films, which was supposed to go up to 7, and then 8, and then 9 and 10. Well, the year that the 6 was supposed to happen, the government cut it to 3 or 4. So there was a 2 billion forint that should have been a budget adjustment in the spending. There was no adjustment. They spent the 6. Well, that's not my, that's his bailiwick. I mean, it was the best intention. I mean, I must tell you that it's not I think everybody wanted to do something really good because they wanted to make sure that the films get going and they keep making the same amount of films. And therefore, they came up with this very clever thing of post-financing the films. So the film MMK gave a letter, they took it to the bank, they discounted it, and they kept spending more money because they could just roll it up. And suddenly, the roll-up was 5 billion forints and another 2 billion in commitments. And you hit the wall.
As far as we are concerned, we have done nothing wrong.
But this is...
And the government's letter of credit with the banks, spending that.
I'm not saying that you did anything wrong, and I'm sorry that you're in the situation that you're in, and I'm not the cause of it. So, and I'm not going to be able to solve it either.
Far be it from me to accuse you of anything.
No,
I'm just trying to figure out where we can go with that.
I think it's the same thing that you get caught up if you were in a regular business. You get caught up in a situation where you get caught up in a bankruptcy. You're stuck, and frankly, you're stuck until it's going to get cleared up somehow. And we're working on trying to clear it up. That's the goal.
Well, I guess the problem is this gap between the MMK and the Hungarian government, so that the MMK was not, in fact, a responsible agent to the Hungarian government. Is that the case?
I'm not accusing anybody of false doing, so that's not my purpose here. I think if you look at the history of it, and you're welcome to ask everybody around to see how we got to where we got, and you'll find out.
No, I think we are turning around now. I mean, we were talking about it earlier. I mean, we won't find the responsible here in this room. This is a problem. So we can't find the real man, who has the answers. So last questions, and at this point I would ask, if the press wants to ask something. But first of all, you have something to say?
Mercedes a nevem, és Bécsből jöttem. I'm not in a position to give you any advice. I'm just an actress. But 5 years, for the period of time, I was member of the European Parliament, and I was in judge for all these subjects, like media policy. And I have to say that mainly it's Berlusconi and Murdoch drawing and designing European media policy, as well as, for example, the US government, and not European creatives. That's all I just want to mention here in this room. Probably you want to take this back home. You mentioned a few times, not only you, some of you, to help. And we have this wonderful film funding systems all over Europe. Personally, I prefer saying public investment, because it comes more close to what all you also said, So I believe the words also change the world, not only facts. The second thing I would like to mention is if it's possible to take into your accounts in your finding decisions, mentioning that Hungary has a very tiny market, mentioning that Hungary has a very specific language, probably you should think also in regions. cultural regions. And I can believe that regional film funding bodies would do a good for the cooperation with the other countries, cross the borders, just close like Romania, like Croatia. We have a close cooperation, we already know, we heard it from Vienna. There is a need to have people focusing in some cultural regions, not only in the main capital. And the very last thing I would love to mention is, these wonderful people I met in different festivals who think about culture and art, and we also have we face the problems that box office is not always the best in the home country for the home movies made back home. We have to take into account people living in the countryside, and we should use the new technologies. We should use all the possibility we have, not only a cinema, we have digitization, we have internet, we have even the old movie that can go by from one little village to the other and show movie films so that we capture again our own people. Because festival, as wonderful as it is, the system of a festival, the people in the countryside never ever come to a festival and have the chance to see the wonderful work you do and you are responsible for that they can be done. Thank you.
I don't want to kill, this discussion here, but this would be a perfect, speech at the end. But if you have something mentioned.
Yes. Mr. Vajna, I've talked
Who you are? Where are you from?
Kirill Galetsky, Hollywood Reporter.
Thank you.
Mr. Vajna, I've talked to Hungarian filmmakers that are sort of deeply skeptical of your appointment, owing to some of the reasons you were talking about, your experiences in Hollywood and the studio system.
No, the world.
The world, okay. Yeah. But
it's not a one-country business.
Right, of course. But they were mentioning that in Europe they have a different way of doing things than in Hollywood or the rest of the world. In certain ways, and so they were wondering, they thought that, you don't have enough experience in the European system. How would you respond to that?
I wouldn't address it. I wouldn't address it. What do you want me to say? I just think I want to say, I'm great. What am I going to say? They don't think I can do it. I understand that they don't think I can do it.
Okay, how would you allay their concerns? How would you?
By asking them to be patient and wait for the program to come out and evaluate it, just like I go to see their films before I evaluate them.
Okay.
Please.
I'm Jenny Hódi. I am probably like. And the dual citizen of Hungary and the United States. And so I look at it from a little bit of perspective, and I remember voting for Mr. Obama, and when he came to power, everybody waited for him to fix everything at the same moment. Problems which were created in the previous administration and which he couldn't deal with, and he said it very clearly, a little bit of patience, and then things might even go down before they come up. So I think, with all due respect, a little bit of patience is needed from all of us. We are all hurting, and then give it a chance and give it a shot to somebody who came here to do something, and then maybe he can fix things, but to look back and try to figure out what was wrong before, it's not a very productive way. We need to look forward and probably have a little patience and see whether the new system will really address all the things. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for everybody to coming here now, and I think it was a timely 2 hours.
Let me wind it up also just for me. All I want from the Hungarian producers and directors is really their help, their assistance, and their patience. And if and when this program is ready, and they dislike it, I'm sure that they will have lots of things to say about it, and they will be heard. But I think right now to speak in a vacuum and to criticize everything and to try and create uneasiness over a situation that I think doesn't make sense. So I believe that right now we really need the patience and we need the wisdom to go forward. And that's what I'm hoping I can implement.
I'd like to thank Andy Weiner for his presence. I'd like to thank all the guests, all our guests who have accepted to be here, and the patience of the audience, your interest. And I'd like to thank very much András Monorimész, who did this very big job to guide us through this afternoon. I thank you, gentlemen, for being here. And I ask everybody to please continue to follow our programs of Cinema Total. We will have programs tomorrow, after tomorrow, and the day after. Thank you.